And now, the continuing story of Home with the Helmers.
Hide the Christmas tree carefully, Ellen. The children mustn't see it until this evening when it's lighted up. How much?
50.
There's 100. No, keep the change.
Thank you.
Yes, he is at home.
Is that my lark twittering there?
Yes?
Is it the squirrel frisking around?
Yes, it is.
When did the squirrel get home?
Just this minute. Come here, Torvald, and let me show you what I've been buying.
Don't interrupt me. Buying, did you say? What? All that? Has my little spendthrift been making the money fly again?
Why, Torvald, surely we can afford to launch out a little now. It's the first Christmas we haven't had to pinch.
Come. We can't afford to squander money.
Yes, Torvald, do let us squander. Just the least little bit. You know you'll soon be earning heaps of money.
Yes, from New Year's Day. But there's a whole quarter before my first salary is due.
Never mind, we can borrow in the meantime.
Nora, still my little feather brain. Supposing I borrowed 1,000 crowns today, and you made ducks and drakes of them during Christmas week. And then on New Year's Eve, a tile blew off the roof and knocked my brains out.
Gosh, how can you talk so horridly?
But supposing it were to happen, what then?
Well, if anything so terrible happened, I wouldn't care whether I was in debt or not.
But what about the creditors?
Who cares for them? They're only strangers.
Nora! What a woman you are. But seriously, Nora, you know my principles on these points. No debts, no borrowing. Home life ceases to be free and beautiful as soon as it is founded on borrowing and debt. We too have held out bravely until now, and we're not going to give in at the last.
Very well. As you please, Torvald.
Oh, come. My little lark mustn't droop her wings like that. What? Is my squirrel in the sulks? Nora? What do you think I have here?
Money.
There. Of course, I knew all sorts of things are wanted at Christmas.
10, 20, 30, 40. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Torvald. This will go a long way.
I should hope so.
Yes, indeed, a long way. But now, let me show you all I've been buying. It's so cheap. Look. Here's a new suit for Ivar. And a horse for Bob. And a dolly and cradle for Emmy. They're only common, but they're good enough for her to pull to pieces. And dresses and kerchiefs for the servants. Oh, I should have gotten something better for old Anna.
And what's in that other parcel?
No, Torvald. You're not to see that until this evening.
But now tell me, you little spendthrift, have you thought of anything for yourself?
For myself? I don't want anything.
Nonsense. Just tell me something sensible you would like to have.
No, really, I don't know of anything. Well, listen, Torvald.
Well?
If you really want to get me something, you might,
Well, out with it.
You might give me money, Torvald. Only just what you think you can spare, and then I can buy something with it later on.
But Nora,
Please do, Torvald, and I'll hang the money and lovely gilt paper on the Christmas tree. Wouldn't that be fun?
what do they call the birds that are always making the money fly?
Yes, I know. Spendthrifts, of course, but please do as I asked, Torvald. And then I shall have time to think what I want most. Isn't that very sensible now?
Certainly, that is to say, if you really kept the money I gave you and really spent it on something for yourself. But it all goes in housekeeping and for all manner of useless things, and then I have to pay up again.
Torvald.
Can you deny it, Nora, dear? It's a sweet little lark, but it gets through a lot of money. No one would believe how much it costs a man to keep such a little bird as you.
For shame, how can you say so? I save as much as ever as I can.
Well, very true, as much as you can. But that's precisely nothing.
If you only knew, Torvald, the expenses we larks and squirrels have.
You're a strange little being. Just like your father, always on the lookout for all the money you can lay your hands on, but the moment you have it, it seems to slip through your fingers. You never know what becomes of it. Well, one must take you as you are. It's in the blood. Yes, Nora, that sort of thing is hereditary.
I wish I had inherited many of Papa's qualities.
And I don't wish you anything but just what you are, my own sweet little songbird. What I say, it strikes me you look so, what shall I call it, so suspicious today.
Do I?
You do, indeed. Look me full in the face.
Well?
Hasn't the little sweet tooth been playing pranks today?
No, how can you think of such a thing?
Didn't she just look in at the confectioner's?
No, really.
Not to sip a little jelly?
No, certainly not.
Hasn't she even nibbled a macaroon or two?
No, Torvald, indeed, indeed.
Well, of course I'm only joking.
I shouldn't dream of doing what you disapprove of.
No, I'm sure of that. And besides, you've given me your word. Well, keep your little Christmas secrets to yourself, Nora, darling. The Christmas tree will bring them all to light, I dare say.
Have you remembered to invite Dr. Rank?
No, but it's not necessary. He'll come as a matter of course. Besides, I shall ask him when he looks in today. I've ordered some capital wine. Nora, you can't think how I look forward to this evening.
And I too, Torvald. How the children will enjoy themselves.
It's glorious to feel that one has an assured position and ample means. Isn't it delightful to think of?
It's wonderful.
Do you remember last Christmas? For 3 whole weeks beforehand, you shut yourself up every evening till long past midnight to make flowers for the Christmas tree and all sorts of other marvels that were to have astonished us. I was never so bored in my life.
I didn't bore myself at all.
But it came to little enough in the end, Nora.
Are you going to tease me about that again? How could I help the cat getting in and tearing it all to pieces?
To be sure you couldn't, my poor little Nora. You did your best to give us all pleasure, and that's the main point. But all the same, it's a good thing the hard times are over.
Isn't it wonderful?
Now I needn't sit here boring myself all alone, and you needn't tire your blessed eyes and your delicate little fingers.
No, I needn't, need I, Torvald? And now, Torvald, I'll tell you what I think we ought to do just as soon as Christmas is over. There's that ring. Oh, that's someone come to call. How tiresome.
I'm not at home to callers, remember that.
A lady here to see you, ma'am.
Show her in?
And the doctor's just come to call, sir.
Has he gone into my study?
Yes, sir.
go off it for 2 days, and then we'll be on the Big Island.
How do you do, Nora?
How do you do?
I see you don't recognize me.
No, I don't think. What? Christine? Is it really you?
Yes, it is I.
Oh, God. Christine? To think I didn't know you, but how could I? How changed you are, Christine.
Oh, no doubt. In 9 or 10 years.
Is it really so long since we've met? Yeah, so it is. The last 8 years have been a happy time, I can tell you. And now you've come to town. All this long journey in midwinter? How brave of you.
I arrived by this morning's steamer.
To have a Merry Christmas, of course. Yes, how delightful. We shall have a Merry Christmas. Do take your things off. Aren't you frozen? There, now we'll sit cozily by the fire. You take the armchair and I'll take this rocking chair. Oh, there. Now I see the dear old face again. It was only at first glance, but you're a little paler, Christine, and perhaps a little thinner.
And much, much older, Nora.
No, ever so little, not much. Oh, what a horrid wretch I am. Oh, here I sit chattering on and on. Dear Christine, can you forgive me?
What do you mean, Nora?
Christine, I forgot that you are a widow.
Yes, my husband died 3 years ago.
Yes, I know. I saw it in the papers. Believe me, Christine, I did mean to write to you. I kept putting it off and something always got in the way.
I can quite understand that.
Oh, Christine, it was horrid of me. Oh, you poor thing, what you must have gone through. And he left you nothing.
Nothing.
And no children?
None.
Nothing. Nothing at all.
Not even a feeling of loss or sorrow.
How is that possible, Christine?
Oh, it happens so sometimes, Nora.
So utterly alone. How dreadful that must be. I have 3 of the loveliest children. I can't show them to you just now. They're out with their nurse, but now you must tell me everything.
No. I want to hear about you.
No, you must begin. I won't be egotistical today. Today I will think only of you. Oh, wait, I just have to tell you this one thing. Maybe you've heard of our great stroke of fortune?
No, what is it?
Only think. My husband has been made manager of the joint stock bank.
Your husband? Oh, how fortunate.
Yes, isn't it? I mean, a lawyer's position is so uncertain. You see, especially when he won't touch any money that's the least bit shady, as of course Torvald never would, and there I quite agree with him. You can't imagine how glad we are. He is to enter his new position in the new year, and then he'll have a large salary and percentages, and in the future, we shall be able to live quite differently, just as we please, in fact. Oh, Christine, it's wonderful and delightful not to have to worry about things.
Yes, at any rate, it must be delightful to have what you need.
No, not only what you need, heaps of money.
No, Nora, haven't you learned reason yet? In our school days, you were quite a little spendthrift.
That's what Torvald says I am still, but Nora's not so silly as you all think. I haven't had the chance to be much of a spendthrift. We've both had to work.
You too?
Yes. Light fancy work, crochet and embroidery, things of that sort, and other work, too. Well, you know, of course, that Torvald left the government service when we were married. He had little chance of promotion, and he required to make more money. But in the first year after our marriage, he overworked himself terribly. He had to work early and late, you know, and take on all kinds of extra work, and he couldn't stand it. He fell dangerously ill, and then the doctors declared he must go to the south.
And you spent a whole year in Italy, didn't you?
We did. I mean, it wasn't easy to manage, I can tell you. It was just after Ivar's birth. Of course, we had to go. It was a wonderful, delicious journey, and it saved Torvald's life, but it cost a frightful lot of money, Christine.
So I should think.
4,800 kroner. Isn't that a lot of money?
How lucky you had the money to spend.
We got it from Father.
I see. He died around that time.
Yes,
Isn't he? Yeah.
just then. And only think I couldn't go and nurse him. I was expecting little Ivar's birth daily, and I had my poor sick Torvald to attend to. Dear kind old father, I never saw him again, Christine. It's the hardest thing I've had to bear since my marriage.
I know how fond you are of your father, but then you went to Italy?
Yes, you see, we had the money. And the doctor said we must lose no time. We left a month later.
And your husband came completely cured?
Sound as a bell.
But the doctor?
What do you mean?
I thought as I came in, I heard your servant announce the doctor.
Oh, Dr. Rank. Well, he doesn't come professionally. He's our best friend. He never lets a day pass without looking in. No, Torvald hasn't had an hour's illness since that time. And the children are so healthy and well, and so am I. Oh, Christine, what a wonderful thing it is to live and to be happy. Oh, it's horrid of me. Here I am just chattering on and on about nothing but my own concerns. Please don't be angry with me. Now, tell me, is it really true you didn't love your husband? What made you marry him then?
Well, my mother was still alive, you see, bedridden and helpless. And then I had my two younger brothers to think of. I didn't think I was justified in refusing his offer.
Perhaps you wouldn't have been. I suppose he was rich then?
Very well off, but his business was uncertain. It fell into pieces right at his death, and there was nothing left.
And then?
Well, I had to turn my hands to anything I could find. First a small shop, then a small school. The last 3 years have seemed to be one long working day with no rest. But now it is over, Nora. My poor mother no longer needs me. She's at rest, and my brothers are in business. They can look after themselves.
Well, how free your life must feel.
No, Nora. Only inexpressibly empty. No one to live for. That's why I could not bear any longer to stay in that out-of-the-way corner. Here it must be easier to find something to take one up, to occupy one's thoughts. If I could only find some settled employment, some office work.
Christine, that's such drudgery. And you look worn out already. But it would be ever so much better for you to find some watering place and rest.
I have no father to give me the money, Nora.
Don't be vexed with me.
Oh, my dear Nora, don't you be vexed with me. The worst of a position like mine is that it makes one so bitter. You have no one to work for, and yet you have to always be on this train. You must live. And so you become selfish. When I heard of the happy change in your fortunes, can you believe it? I was delighted not so much on your account as on my own.
How do you mean? I see. You think Torvald can perhaps do something for you.
Yes, I thought so.
So he shall. Christine! Oh, just you leave it all to me. Oh, I shall lead up to it beautifully. I will think of some delightful plan to put him in a good humor. Oh, I should so love to help you.
How kind you are, Nora, to be so anxious to help me. It is doubly kind in you, for you know so little of the troubles and burdens of life.
I who know so little of...
Oh, well, a little fancy work and so forth. You're a child, Nora.
Come, you mustn't be so patronizing.
No?
You're like the rest. You all think I'm fit for nothing really serious.
Well.
You think I've had no troubles in this weary world.
My dear Nora, you have just told me all your troubles.
Pooh, those trifles. I haven't told you the great thing.
The great thing? What do you mean?
We will return to the continuing story of Home with the Helmers after this message. This part of Home with the Helmers is brought to you by our sponsor, Keeler and Peterson. Keeler and Peterson, inspirational treats since 1879. Now available in chocolate, almond, and new, no sugar added coconut. Go ahead. Nibble a macaroon or two. Keeler and Peterson. And now we return to the continuing story of Home with the Helmers.
The great thing? What do you mean?
I know you look down upon me, Christine, but you have no right to. You're proud of having worked so long and so hard for your mother.
I'm sure I don't look down upon anyone, but it's true I am both proud and glad when I remember that I was able to keep my mother's last days free from care.
And you're proud to think of what you've done for your brothers, too.
Have I not right to be?
Yes, indeed. But now, let me tell you, Christine, I too have something to be proud and glad of.
I don't doubt it. But what do you mean?
Hush, not so loud. Only think if Torvald were to hear. He mustn't, not for the world. Christine, no one must know about it, no one but you.
Why? What could it be?
Come over here. Yes, Christine. I too have something to be proud and glad of. I saved Torvald's life.
Saved his life? How?
I told you about our going to Italy. Torvald would have died but for that.
Well, and your father gave you the money.
So Torvald and everyone else believes, but...
But what?
Papa didn't give us 1 penny. It was I who found the money.
You? All that money?
4,800 crowns. What do you say to that?
How did you manage it? Did you win it in the lottery?
In the lottery? Anyone could have done that.
Then wherever did you get it from?
Tra-la-la.
Of course you couldn't borrow it.
No? Why not?
Why a wife cannot borrow without the husband's consent?
Well, when a wife knows something about business and how to set about things.
Nora, I don't understand you.
Well, you needn't. I never said I borrowed the money. There are many ways I may have gotten it. I may have gotten it from some admirer when one is so attractive as I am.
You're mad, Nora.
Oh, I'm sure you're dying of curiosity, Christine.
Haven't you been a little rash?
Is it rash to save one's husband's life?
I think it was rash of you without his knowledge.
But it would have been fatal for him to know. Can't you understand that? He wasn't even to suspect how ill he was. The doctors came to me privately, told me that his life was in danger, that nothing could save him but a winter in the South. Do you think I didn't try diplomacy first? I told him how I longed to have a trip abroad like other young wives. I wept and I prayed. I told him he ought to think of my condition, not to thwart me. And then I told him, Christine, that maybe he could borrow the money, and he got almost angry with me. He said I was frivolous, and it was his job as a husband not to yield to my whims and fancies, so he called them. Very well, thought I, but saved you must be. And then I found a way to do it.
And did your husband never learn from your father that the money wasn't from him?
No, never. Papa died at that very time. I meant to have told him all about it and begged him to say nothing, but unhappily it wasn't necessary.
And you have never confessed it to your husband?
Heavens, what can you be thinking? Tell him when he has such a loathing of debt? And besides, how painful and humiliating it would be for Torvald, with his manly self-respect, to know that he owed anything to me. It would utterly upset the relations between us. This beautiful, happy home would never again be what it is.
Will you never tell him?
Yes, sometime, maybe many, many, many years from now, when I'm not so pretty. You mustn't laugh at me. You know, of course I mean when it doesn't amuse Torvald any longer to see me dressing up and acting and dancing about. It might be nice to have something in reserve. Nonsense. Nonsense, this time will never come. Now, what do you say to my grand secret, Christine? Am I fit for nothing now? You may believe it has cost me a lot of anxiety. I don't know if you know that in business there are these things called installments and quarterly interests. They're terribly hard to provide for, and I've had to pinch a little here and there. I couldn't save much out of the housekeeping, for Torvald had to live well, and I couldn't let the children go about badly dressed. All I got for them, I spent on them, the blessed darlings.
Oh, Nora, so it had to come out of your own pocket money?
Yes, of course. After all, it was all my doing. So when Torvald gave me money for clothes and so on, I never spent more than half of it. I always bought the simplest and cheapest things. It's a mercy that everything suits me so well. Torvald never had any suspicions. But it was very hard, Christine, dear, for it's nice to be beautifully dressed now, isn't it?
Indeed it is.
And besides that, I made money in other ways. Last winter, I was so lucky, I got a heap of copying to do. And I shut myself up late into the evening, and I wrote and wrote, and I was so tired, but it was splendid to work in that way and earn money. I almost felt as if I was a man.
Then how much have you been able to pay off that way?
Well, I can't exactly say. It's difficult to keep that sort of business clear. I can only tell you I have paid off everything that I could scrape together. Sometimes I really didn't know where to turn. And then I used to sit here and imagine that this rich old gentleman was in love with me.
What? Gentlemen?
Nobody, but he was dead now. And when his will was opened, there stood in large letters, "Pay over at once everything of which I die possessed to that charming person, Mrs. Nora Helmer."
What gentleman do you mean?
Dear, don't you understand? There wasn't any old gentleman. It was just what I used to dream when I was at my wit's end for money. But it doesn't matter now. The tiresome old creature can stay where he is for me. I care nothing for him or his will. For now my troubles are over. Oh, Christine. How glorious it is to think of. Free from anxiety. Free. Quite free to be able to romp and play with the children and have things tasteful and pretty in the house, exactly as Torvald likes it. And then the spring is coming with the great blue sky. Perhaps we'll have a little holiday. Perhaps I'll see the sea again. Ah, oh, what a wonderful thing it is to live and to be happy.
There is a ring. Perhaps I better go.
No, do stay. It's sure to be someone for Torvald.
If you please, ma'am, there's a gentleman to speak with Mr. Helmer.
Who is the gentleman?
It is I, Mrs. Helmer. With a little bank business, in a way.
Join us next time on Home with the Helmers.